Hey everybody, welcome back. It is the Razzball Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I am Beaton, joined by the magnificent, magnanimous, manicured, marvelous, memorable, miraculous,
Hands,
and of Mr.
touching hands,
Gray Albright.
reaching out, touching me, touching you.
And we
I
just lost
am.
all our listeners. We lost all.
I'm going to do the whole podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see I am holding my own head up in my hands.
I don't believe you could keep your hands like that for like an hour and a half.
I could if I was
I
a
don't.
zombie.
I think we
Uh,
need like a motivator there to keep your hands
Okay,
there.
so can we? Okay, so have you done the? Have you played the Immaculate Grid thing?
I don't know what that is.
Oh, wow! I didn't know. I didn't know you were that kind of nerd. You're a nerd who doesn't do nerdy things. I see.
I mean, I do a baseball podcast along with a football podcast.
Fantasy, fantasy,
I'm going to a
fantasy.
live draft next weekend. I'm pretty much spending my whole weekend
Yeah,
devoted to fantasy
yeah,
sports. I
you're a
play
nerd.
video games.
Yeah, you nerd.
Like I'm pretty
You
nerdy,
nerd.
Gray.
You nerd.
I really like this hoodie, literally because like it comes all the way over, and I can wear it like I'm Darth Maul, and just like
Yeah, you nerd.
yeah,
Yeah,
full nerd.
you absolute nerd. Okay, well, if you don't know what the Immaculate Grid is, then there's nothing for me to say. Okay, so here it is. I could actually explain it to you. Do you know what Wordle is?
Yes, I
Yeah.
know what
Okay.
word.
Okay. So it's like a baseball Wordle. So if you go to Immaculate, I'm giving them free PR, but it's fun. So if you go to immaculategrid.com, you then get a nine spots, like it looks like the Hollywood Squares. So I'm really dating myself here. It's nine. It's like tic-tac-toe board, right? And they have a team in each row going vertical, and a team in each row going horizontal. And then, so where they overlap, so say it's like it's the Yankees Royals overlap in one square. So then you have to pick a player who has played for the Yankees and the Royals. So you could write in Steve Balboni. So anyway, it's like you can only do it once a day. You can't, it's like Wordle in that respect. You can only do it once a day. And I've tried to hide my IP address so I could do it more than once a day. That's how addicted I am. It's basically remember a guy. So anyway, so long story short, so now that I've caught you up on what it is, so they sometimes, instead of like a team, they'll put in like 20 game winner or Gold Glove or Hall of Fame, or so, they'll put in a different, for one of the rows. It'll be, instead of like a team, it'll say like an achievement. So anyway, it was yesterday's was or I guess it was Sunday. I don't know. I do it like as soon as it comes out on Sunday at like 9 o'clock my time, which is midnight East Coast. So I guess that's actually Monday's grid. So anyway, so it said Oakland A's, and then it was 200 hits. And I was like, in the 80s, I was an A's fan for a while because I just followed Reggie Jackson around because I thought he was my dad. Anyway, that's a side note. So okay, so it had the A's and 200 hits, and I swear I thought it was like I usually am pretty good at this. I guessed like five names and I got them all wrong. It was so hard. I couldn't, for some reason, like I was like, oh, Carney Lansford. No. And then I was like, oh, Ricky Henderson. No. And then I was like, I was so bad at like a team that I should have easily got. Anyway, this is like a Shaggy Dog story. maybe people listening will appreciate it, even though you seem like you're checking your phone for messages.
I'm trying to figure out how we segue from this into whatever we're talking about next. That's basically what I'm doing. I guess is there an overall like wrap up here, Gray? Is there a
no. The wrap up is I'm a fan of this immaculate grid thing. I love remembering players, and for whatever reason, I could not remember my favorite team growing up. Well, and not I wouldn't say growing up, but for a good chunk of my my youth, because I was a Canseco McGuire fan. Like once Reggie retired in '87. I then stayed with the A's until I went to college in the 90s. Anyway, this is a real Shaggy Dog story. Anyway, I was trying to remember a 200 hit A's player, and I could not, for the life of me, remember one. Do you know one?
I don't off the top of my head. I'm usually good at trivia, but I wasn't like.
It's hard.
I'm just not in the
mind.
It could
be anyone though. It could be a current player. Like it doesn't need to be in the 80s.
Does it have to be all with the A's? Is there?
No, they just had to get 200 hits with the A's. I honestly, eventually, I just Googled it because I was so.
That's my problem. Is like I would just Google. I'd be like, you know what? Screw it. I just want to know the answer, and I would go look it up.
I ended up doing it ended up being like Home Run Baker or something. It was like the Philadelphia A's, like in 1912 or something like so stupid that I was like, I'm just writing in that and I'm moving on because I've already ruined this grid. Oh, by the way, you only get 9 guesses, and you have 9 squares. So if you mess up one square like I did, I couldn't even move on and do the other ones. Like I wasn't even able to do it because I kept messing up on the one square. Anyway, this is really a dumb conversation. You can cut this whole thing.
I mean, I'm just gonna go Moneyball here. Would Johnny Damon be on the list?
No, did he get 200 hits? I
feel like Damon did. I feel like that's why he got paid.
But I'm assuming like at this point. Now that I've told you, I'm assuming you've been Googling it, and now you're just like...
I'm just holding it over your head.
Now you're just trying to make me look bad. Wait, Johnny Damon was he was only on the A's 1 year. Was that the year? He didn't know.
They had like a good playoff run with like him and like that's the whole Moneyball like movie. Is Johnny Damon was there, and then they had to replace him.
No, I know, but he didn't have. Did he? No, he had 165 hits.
Okay, I was just checking.
Close, yeah. No, I thought you were cheating. Like, if you're gonna cheat, at least cheat correctly.
I was just gonna go straight to like Moneyball and be like, you know what? It feels right. Like Johnny Damon never took a walk. Like he just hit. Like that's all he ever did.
Johnny Damon. No, that's a fair guess. I mean, it's better than probably my guesses. I don't know. I could have sworn Ricky Henderson.
I would have guessed Ricky. Like Ricky would have been my first guess,
right?
And you already said him, so I was like, I don't know from there.
I know. Like Ricky Henderson or Carney Lansford. I was like, who else could possibly have been? And Ricky was like. Ricky never even had a 200 hit season, like in his entire career. He walked a lot. He never hit 200. He never had 200 hits. Like that's wild.
He walked a lot. I mean, that's why he was the ultimate leadoff hitter.
Yeah. Well, speaking of leadoff hitters, there you go. Now you
go. Thank you very much. And on pace for possibly a 200 hit season if he just keeps going. Like it's gonna be right there on the border. We talked already about MVP to Ohtani on the AL side. Can we just give it to Ronald Acuna Jr. on the NL side? He hit almost 500 this week, Gray. He had 5 home runs, 4 stolen bases, a 600 OBP. By the way, Ohtani hit 417 with 6 home runs and a stolen base in a 533 OBP. So he's not exactly slumping on his side. Acuna's got 2139. 76, 54, 336, 415, 604. He has a 12.5% K rate for everybody that said he struck out too much, an 11% walk rate. So he's almost striking and walking out at the same, like, he has 112 hits, Gray. I just wanted to bring it up because we talked about Ohtani. Like, Acuna is doing it on the NL side. Like, he's just running away.
Yeah, no, completely. I'm impressed that I don't get more tomatoes thrown at my head for fading Ohtani in the preseason. Talk about an idiot move.
I may have missed some things. Ohtani was my 1. Acuna was my 2. Like, I got those two right.
I think I ranked Acuna like 8th or something.
We did
bad.
talk about how in like a daily league, he'd be 1 or 2. Like, we talked about it on the show. That we can go back and play it for everybody.
So last week I talked about Ohtani and how like he would be, outpacing like Judge. I think I mentioned Judge on the historical player rater, where he had the best season of all time last year. He's number 1, and then number 2 of all time is Ty Cobb from 1909. And then number 3 is Babe Ruth, 1921. And you can go on Razzball and look at the historical player rater for the rest. But anyway, Judge was number 1 last year. Right now, if the season were to end, Acuna has $4 more value than Aaron Judge did last year. He's actually, like, last year was the greatest fantasy season ever by Aaron Judge. And it was so amazing. Like, if you had him on your team last year, you were so pleased. And this year, Acuna's doing better. Like, this is insane that we're having like back-to-back greatest seasons ever. And Ohtani is basically like, if you were to include his pitching stats, he's basically doing the same thing as Acuna and Judge did last year. Like, it's just insane that we have 3 guys now in 2 seasons that have just been better than anyone else ever for fantasy. Like, that's nuts, man. Like, that is really, like, I mean, you wouldn't imagine a guy could have, like, I don't know, I guess maybe because I've been doing this for so long, but you're like, you look at these seasons and you're like, like, if you go back to previous years, like the best year of the last like 20 years was Alex Rodriguez in 2007. And that was like the 36th best season of all time. 36th best. Like, I mean, and that was a good season. Like, don't get me wrong. He had 54 homers and 24 steals. Like, it was a really good year from A-Rod in 07. And that was eclipsed by Aaron Judge last year. And now we have 2 guys doing that this year. Like, it's so crazy. So, yeah, with Acuna, I mean, he's on pace for basically a 40 homer, 80 steal season. What even, man? What even? Like, that's basically his best year times 2. Times 2. Like, that's crazy. Like, not for power. Like, he had a 41 homer, 37 steal year in 2019, and that was his best steal year. But we're seeing a year where he's basically he's already has his career high in steals with 39 steals as of Monday. Yeah, I mean, he's hitting close to 340. This is like, I mean, this is unreal, man. This is truly like, what a terrible year to fade Acuna. God damn it, man. Oh, man. Why did he have to say his knee felt like wet newspaper? I I over valued that little bit of injury information. Like I really I should have ignored it. Sometimes I almost feel like the less you know, the better off. Sometimes you just like you look at Acuna and you see a guy who's so talented. I should have just left it at that. I shouldn't have. I shouldn't have read. I shouldn't have done any research past that point.
That's the write up for the next season. Like until he like stops doing this, it's just you look at the guy. He's so talented. ... That's it. Here's projections.
Yeah, exactly. exactly. Like that's like if Ellie De La Cruz, like I don't want to put the Kavorka on him, but if he were to have an injury, I would then be like, next year I'd be like, well, Ellie De La Cruz, a little bit injury prone. Like, what? Shut up, man.
You heard it here first.
Shut up, brain. That's stupid. He's talented. That's all you need to know. You don't need to know anything else. Stop reading into stuff, man. Stop looking at injury reports. It's not helping you. Oh, man. Yeah, Acuna, man. I'm going to be doing probably by the All-Star break, Tuesday of next week, I think, I'll have my top 100 overall will drop. And Acuna will be number one for me, obviously. It's not even a question because Ohtani, unfortunately, like Ohtani, you're losing out on some hitting stats or some pitching stats, depending on how you play them. Even in a daily league, you're missing out on something. With Acuna, I mean, obviously, you're just, you set him and forget him, and you're not missing out on anything. So yeah, he's going to be number one for me. But yeah, Ohtani's a close second, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it kind of depends. I mean, if we were looking at teams and ranking them for teams, we're like, okay, do you occasionally need somebody, an ace, to throw for you? Well, then Ohtani's probably number one for you then. Do you need just a hitter who's just going to put up ridiculous numbers and steals? Then it's obviously Acuna. Like,
yeah,
you can go either way with that one.
I think they're 1-2. It's close. I think it's Ohtani's close for sure. I just think that Ohtani is unreal, man. Like he is like as amazing as Acuna is. Like you watch Ohtani and you're like, this is the greatest guy who's ever played baseball. It's like a wild time right now with baseball because Ohtani, I think, is the best player. Like we've seen Acuna types before. Not that Acuna's not amazing. Like don't get me wrong. Like he's an incredible like power speed. Like he's amazing. Ohtani we've never seen before. Like that's what he's doing is off the charts. Just like that's insane that he is hitting the ball opposite way, 460 feet, and then getting on the mound and throwing 12K games against the best hitters in the league. Like it's insane, but yeah, Ohtani I think is number two behind Acuna for fantasy, for daily leagues. But I agree that it's close, and if you need a starter, yeah, I wouldn't fault you. If you were redrafting today, I wouldn't fault you if you went Ohtani 1, Acuna 2nd. It would be hard though. It would be hard to pass up on Acuna, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, either one is kind of a winning decision. You're not really going to feel bad about it. While we're just on this topic, let's talk about, I mean, in the overall player rater, those are 1-2. It's not really close, as you said, especially when you add Ohtani's pitching to his hitting. But the next one on the list is Matt Olson. We were talking about this before the show. He's third on the list. He's just been killing it all season. He doesn't have the stolen bases to help. Freddie Freeman is number 5 on the player rater overall, number 2 first baseman. And then there's a big drop off. Like it drops $13 in value to Goldschmidt, Alonso, and then it's like Spencer Steer, Christian Walker, Yandy Diaz, Justin Turner. That feels really gross to say. Josh Naylor and Luis Reyes. Like that's their top 10. Vlad has been good in stretches and bad in stretches. He's at 12. So like he's been like the numbers are fine, but they're not, career numbers for Vlad. He's not making a huge, massive season for him. But let's talk about Matt Olson at the top. Like he's third. Is there anything that says he shouldn't be in your top five as you're about to look at your top 100?
Yeah, I just quickly no, I think Matt Olson's in the I think he's in the top 15, maybe top 10. Yeah, I'm still working it out, but yeah, I think he's in the top 10 probably. I think he's just, like I said in the I said in the preseason that I think he was my NL MVP preseason pick. Obviously, his teammate Acuna is going to beat him pretty easily if he continues to go to do what he's been doing. But Matt Olson's, I mean, I always felt like Matt Olson was a little bit underrated in the preseason. Like he is an easy 50 homer guy if he stays healthy and he makes enough contact to hit 50 homers. Like he's a huge power guy. Like if anyone's ever seen Matt Olson, it's no surprise that he's doing well with power. And it was only a matter of luck whether or not he was going to get as much runs and RBIs as he was going to need to, either, be in the MVP conversation or have a great year on the player rater, because the Braves lineup is so good. So of course, it was just a matter of time before he had the runs and RBIs to be in those two conversations. Without the steals, he becomes harder to, I think, if I were to redraft right now, I think I'm probably going Freddie Freeman in front of Olson, just because of the steals that Freeman continues to do, even though, it's not, he doesn't seem like a guy who should have as many steals as he does, but he does. So, I mean, until he stops running, it's like with Paul Goldschmidt. Until these guys stop running, it's just a matter of just chalking them up for 12 to 15 steals each year. And Pete Alonso and Matt Olson, I think, are closer. Right now, Pete Alonso is dealing with the issue of he's having some bad luck on BABIP and not hitting for as good an average. So he's, dropped down into a different tier than as you mentioned, it's Olson and Freeman. And then there's a new tier of Goldschmidt and Alonso. But if Alonso's BABIP luck bounces back and his average bounces back, I think he's still, in the preseason, I want to say I had Freeman around maybe 12 overall. I don't have it in front of me, so I could be wrong here. But Alonso I had a little bit after him at 17 overall, and then Olson I had around 25 overall. So I think Alonso and Olson move up together in the mid, the 12 to 15 to 17 range, and then Freeman stays where he was at between 9 and 12 overall. That sort of thing. I honestly, I think they're all good. All these guys that we're mentioning in the top first baseman, but it does get super wonky after that. The first baseman, I was looking at on the player rater, you have Isaac Paredes is the 13th best first baseman. And actually, no, Nathaniel Lowe. Nathaniel Lowe at 14, first baseman. He is the last first baseman in the top 100 at 14. So 14 first basemen are in the top 100. That feels light. I would guess that there was probably 15 to 17 first basemen overall that were drafted in the top 100. I don't know. I don't have ADP in front of me either. But that feels a little bit light. And the names that are in there, as you mentioned, are super wonky. Like the Justin Turners, Spencer Steers, like that. Not that I don't like these guys. Like I liked Justin Turner actually a bit more than I usually do this year because going to Boston, I knew his BABIP would be up, and so that's going to help. Keep his average up. So I actually like Justin Turner a bit coming into this year. I don't think I drafted him anywhere, but I did like him. Josh Naylor's been great for RBIs and, not much else, maybe average, I guess. Average in RBIs he's been good with. Luis Urias, everyone knows, what he's been good with. So yeah, I don't know. It's a weird year. It's like, it's a bizarre year where the first baseman, it feels kind of like the first basemen are going through a transition to, they're getting younger in some respects, and the older guys are starting to fall a little bit. But yeah, like you can't rely on, going out of the top, top 100 overall and going to guys who are further along, like the Anthony Rizzo's. Like he had a good April, but he's been terrible. And usually he actually doesn't fall off until like usually the All-Star break. And this year he has fallen off, tremendously. I think May, June. And other guys like the Jose Abreu's obviously have been, miserable. Vinny Pasquantino has, the injury with him. Josh Bell's been awful. CJ Cron, terrible. Jose Miranda did not live up to the hype. So there's been a lot of, Jared Walsh looks washed. Jared washed. Alec Baum, it doesn't look like he's taken the step, up to, the next level. His power is just so bleh, kind of, he's like Alec Baum doesn't hit bombs. Brandon Donovan, probably better than you were expecting, or maybe, I don't know, maybe you were expecting, something, but I mean, he's been fine. He's been okay just because he's been in the lineup most days and hitting leadoff, on most days as well. So yeah, I mean, and Mountcastle has been kind of like and he's been injured, and now he's got vertigo, and that's the kind of injury where like he could come back tomorrow, or he might not be back until next year. I don't even know. So yeah, first baseman's been a weird position this year. I tend to agree with you. I think it's, if I had to guess for guys who will in the top 10 overall, a first baseman for, guys who I think will be okay in the second half. I kind of like, I still like Luke Rowley, and Spencer Steer and Josh Naylor. I think they're going to be okay. If those are surprising names for you, for people who are listening, if they're surprising names, and then like I think Vlad can have a better second half than he's had a first half, but I do think Vlad is never, like maybe not never, but that one huge year he had in what was it, 2021? That year is going to be really hard for him to duplicate. He could do it. I mean, obviously, he did it once. He could do it again. But him hitting 48 homers in 2021 just feels like unreal expectations from him at this point. Like he looks a lot more like a 30 homer hitter than a 45 plus homer hitter. Anyway, I was rambling a little bit, but yeah, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, that's okay. We'll just keep moving. And it has affected like first base and corner infield in that just the shallowness of first base. Like the 15 in the top 100 actually doesn't sound awful, but like how many of those guys did you actually start for enough value to get, like the top 15 first baseman out of them? Like you probably weren't starting Isaac Paredes the whole way, Luke Raley the whole way. Um, Josh Naylor, maybe you had him at quarter infield. Yandy Diaz, like that was more of a deep league play because he never hit home runs. Brennan Drury started the season just awful, so like you just dropped him. Maybe he was better for his value that you didn't play him every day. Like it's a lot of these guys you just didn't play enough to get all their Spencer Steer. Like he got hot the last month and a half, 2 months, but before that he was pretty mediocre as well.
I actually was
And
able to. I picked up Spencer Steer in one league. I think in like beginning of May. So I mean, that's not to my own horn. That's more to say like
he was available.
he was available. So that means I didn't get his stats from April, whatever they
Yeah.
were.
Yeah. All right. Let's go ahead and move on. Out of the top three guys here, not a whole lot that they can do, but that's a look at first base, corner infield. We're going to look at one more. Darick Hall called up by the Phillies. He was going to start the year for the Phillies after the Reese Hoskins injury. Then he got injured. He's back. He's back with the Phillies. 21 games in AAA. He had 3 home runs. He's hitting 325, 406, 538. He's definitely above a AAA player. Is he an MLB player worth adding to rosters, Gray?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think he's probably a deeper league, mixed league guy, potentially. Maybe 15-team mixed league, daily league, preferably, because he will platoon. There's no way he's going to play against lefties. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind him as like a deeper league play to grab him and see if he can hit some power, because he does have a good power bat. You mentioned that he hit 325 in AAA. It was only 21 games,
Yeah, it
but
was very small.
yeah, and also, I mean, he doesn't strike out a ton though. He hit 250 last year for the Phillies in 42 games with 31% strikeout rate. That feels a little bit high for him actually on the strikeouts. He's surprisingly he's not terrible, I don't think, for average. Like he could potentially hit 250 or higher. And maybe, I want to say in a half season that's left, he could potentially hit like 14 to 16 homers, maybe like, like a 30 homer pace and hit 250 potentially. I think that could happen. He's not going to steal anything. He's not going to steal any bags. So, it's fine. I think if you're able to platoon him, it's much more attractive of an option because, like I said, he's not going to face lefties. So it's fine for a deeper league. And the occasional, in a shallow, like an RCL 12-team mixed league, if you're like looking for maybe a baddie call and, on a short schedule day, if he's playing and if he's in the lineup, I could see picking him up for the day. But in shallower leagues, I don't think he's going to play unless he gets, if it gets hot, and then maybe he could potentially get on a shallower league radars. But right now, I think he's just a deeper league play.
Okay, so we're talking 15-team leagues and beyond that for Darick Hall for the most part.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's just throw some quick names since we're already into the show with first baseman. Would you rather have him or you mentioned Anthony Rizzo? Would you rather have him or Anthony Rizzo rest of the season?
Well, I'm still going Rizzo, but Rizzo looks kind of cooked. I think Rizzo, like he sort of lulls you into a false sense of security because he's got good name value and you put him in your lineup and he's terrible. He's awful. But with that said, I'm still going Rizzo because, I don't know. It's kind of like the Yankees in general have they give you a false sense of security because you're like, well, Rizzo's in the middle of the Yankees lineup. That's got to be good, right? Yeah, he's getting protected by Billy McKinney. But yeah, I don't know. I am still going Rizzo over Hall, but I could see those two changing potentially.
What about name value Jose Abreu?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Jose Abreu, I mean, I mentioned him in the when we were talking about the first baseman. Obviously, he had a terrible April. He's been okay from May and June. I mean, not amazing. Actually, June. I think June was the point when he started hitting again. I mean, I don't know. I'm still going Jose Abreu, but it's not great. Not a great situation.
Okay. So so when you're looking more like in maybe like the Brandon Belt area, like I feel like that's where
Yeah.
we're looking.
Yeah. Brandon Belt's actually that's not a bad. Brandon Belt maybe like if you're like between Josh Bell. Josh Bell I think is really bad.
Yeah, he's been real bad for like a year and a half now.
Yeah. Josh Bell is like he's living off of like a half a season for like 2 seasons ago. He's like, like if you're looking at like Nick Prado, Josh Bell, or Darick Hall, yeah, I'd try Hall. Or if you're looking at like, Miguel Vargas has really been disappointing. Like if you're looking at Miguel Vargas or Darick Hall, I could see trying Hall maybe. See if maybe you catch lightning in a bottle.
All right. Yeah, that sounds good. How about our next guy, Jared Young? Would you have Jared Young, who was called up for the Cubs, or Darick Hall?
Uh, Jared Young. These guys, this is a bad week for call ups. The call ups this week is like, I feel like it's the teams are saying, like, yeah, I mean, we got the break soon. Why don't we call up some guys and like we'll give like some of our vets like a couple days off, like Jared Hall. I mean Jared Young, Jared Hall. Jared Young, I would say is I think he's even deeper than Darick Hall. I think Jared Young is probably NL only where Darick Hall, I could see potentially 15-team mixed league. I don't know. I don't really have strong feelings, like positive feelings on Jared Young. He looks like he's got power, and he looks like a quad A player. So maybe a few homers and hitting 220, maybe. I don't know. You're a Cubs fan. You like Jared Young?
I like him a little bit more than you. It sounds like I probably have him in that same area with Darick Hall, where they may not start every game. It's going to be some power, but Jared Young's just. I mean, he's hitting well. Like all season, he's been hitting well in the minors. So there's just a little bit more of a ramp up to him, performing well, seeing the ball well this season, and sometimes that can carry through for like his first month of the call up. So I like that about him. I do think Darick Hall is probably a little bit more. I don't know, overall talented. Like he has overall more power, and I don't think that either of them's a 300 hitter, even though Jared Young was a 326 hitter, and I think Hall in his 5 games or whatever it was in the minors has been a 300 hitter as well. But I don't think either of them is that. I think they're both pretty much power, and you kind of ride the hot streaks. And the Cubs have been starting Jared Young, like he's
Yeah,
been
that's
starting
fair.
at first base.
Yeah, that's fair. I think if anyone who's playing and is hitting well, like or is hot, I'm fine picking them up. Like I have nothing against Jared Young if he's hitting. I would pick him up in any league if he was hitting, but I just don't think it's going to last. That's all.
Yeah,
I
I would tend to agree with that statement.
Yeah.
All right. Moving over, Yanni Hernandez called up by the Dodgers in AAA this year in 47 games. He had 2 home runs, 8 stolen bases, 41, 25. He had 260, 407, 385. He had a sub 20% K rate, a 19.5% walk rate. He's never had a K rate above 20 at any stop in the minors other than like a 5-game little pit stop at one point. This is definitely on the speed side. Are you interested in Yadi Hernandez at all?
Is an incredible amount of hype behind some of these call-ups we have to talk about this week. I'm basically learning about these players for the first time right now as well. Yanni Hernandez has looks like he has great speed, and not much else. So I would say, and if speed and contact will lead to in theory will lead to a high BABIP and a decent enough average. So if he can get on base and steal some bags, that's interesting. I just don't think like he has a set way of getting some playing time. I think his playing time is pretty wonky right now. So if my guess is he's a pinch runner, maybe a start or two, going into the break just to give some guys a little bit of rest. So maybe he gets a couple games and maybe he steals a couple bags this week, but he's not a long-term answer for anything. I think he's probably, if nothing, I think he's sagging off at best, really.
Yeah, he's pretty much just been starting against lefties, which is obviously not a platoon side that you really have a whole lot of use for outside of very deep leagues or, like you said, daily leagues. Maybe you swap him in there if you see it's a lefty and you're chasing steals down. But that seems about the extent of his use here. As you mentioned, it's just a weird week for call-ups where it's more like filler than it is substantial, meaningful guys. Moving over, Alec Marsh was called up by Kansas City. He had 47 innings at Double A this year. He had a 5.32 ERA, 1.58 WHIP, 26.5% K rate, 11.3% walk rate. And Triple A, he had 15 innings there. He had a 2.40 ERA, a 1.33 WHIP, 29% K rate, and an 18% walk rate. He had a start versus the Dodgers that went 4 innings, 6 hits, 5 earned on 2 home runs, 4 walks, and 5 strikeouts. Fastball, slider, change, has a curveball, but it's really just kind of a show me pitch. Are you interested in Alec Marsh? Do you expect him to kind of stick around post All-Star break, or is this just a filler lineup guy?
He's a spot start. Maybe, I don't think he sticks around. And his command is so bad. I'm not really interested in him in any leagues. I would even probably ignore him in an AL only for now, unless he were to stick around and then, in AL only anyone plays. But I don't know. His claim to fame, Alec Marsh, was, I don't know a lot of people know this, he was found in Brandon Marsh's beard. That's where he was discovered. It's an interesting little tidbit.
Spawn of the beard.
Yeah, he's a spawn of the beard. So, but yeah, no, I would even ignore an AL only. Anyway, moving along. These terrible call-ups.
Yeah, I guess there's a possibility like Austin Cox and him, like neither of them seem like starters.
I don't get what I don't understand is, I mean, I'm not one to talk because we have all kinds of wonky ads and videos on our site. But why is Fangraph showing video of Sean Manaea on the A's? What is this? Why? I don't understand. What are they doing with these videos? Anyway, go ahead. Sorry, B-Don. Continue.
Let's go ahead and move over to Keaton Winn, who got his first start for the Giants. Triple A this year, he had 41 innings, 4.35 ERA, 1.65 WHIP, 27% K rate, 11% walk rate. He went 6 innings in his first start, 2 earned, 3 Ks, 1 walk. Are you interested in Keaton Winn, or again, is this kind of another filler spot start?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Keaton Winn, to me, is a little bit more interesting than the other guys that we talked about. Maybe because I'm an NL only guy at heart, and I have I have a little bit of more love for my NL only pitchers. But he looks better to me than like Alec Marsh. I think he's got 2 pretty good pitches. Like he's got a 96 mile per hour fastball and a really good splitter. So I don't know. I mean, maybe he's nothing but an NL only guy, but I'm kind of interested in Keaton Winn, even in a 15 team mixed league, just a little bit. Like I'm probably in a situation where I'm just going to monocle him and I'm not necessarily picking him up yet in mixed leagues, but I am kind of interested in seeing, because I think there could be something there. Like, and San Francisco is a great park. Not that, Kauffman Stadium's a good park too, thinking back on Marsh. But yeah, I think Wynn is kind of interesting. And he's younger. He's got more of a trajectory that I understand when I'm looking at his stats from the minor leagues. Like, it looks like he could be something. If not, at least he's a streamer in decent, like, home matchups, potentially. For 15 team mixed league for sure. Not quite at the like 12 team mixed league level yet, but I'm watching them though. I'm kind of interested. We'll see.
Yeah, primarily two pitch guy, as you mentioned, and the splitter is like notoriously a little bit hit or miss when it comes to especially command. So there are going to be some potential blowups there. Just if it's not the splitter isn't working, the fastball is nice. I don't know if it's enough to just overpower guys for a full game if the splitter's not there. But the splitter worked in his first game. We'll have to monitor that and see if that continues. At least he's in a good park for it as well. Dominic Fletcher was recalled by Arizona, AAA this year in 35 games. He had 3 home runs, 2 stolen bases. He had 325, 417, 497, 16% K rate, 10% walk rate. 25 games at the major league level this year. He has 2 home runs. He's hitting 303, 347, 449. They called him up to face his brother in a game. How do you feel about Dominic Fletcher? Are you at least a little bit interested in him, or is he joining the bucket of deep league ads?
I'm sorry. Were you joking, or does he have a brother in the major leagues?
He does. It's shoot. Now that you've asked me, I've completely lost it. It's David Fletcher.
David Fletcher, the Angels.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't realize that. Huh. Interesting. Well, hopefully he's better than his brother. Oh, yeah. I don't think the playing time is there, man. I think it's like NL only, potentially. Like his brother, I mean, he does make good contact. He looks like he could hit for a decent average. He's got very little power and very little speed, also like his brother. So, they're kind of cut from the same cloth in a lot of ways, or from the same womb. I don't know. We'll ignore that. Pretend like that was beeped out. Yeah, I like, I like him in an NL only. I can't see him playing yet enough for mixed league. So, pass.
Yeah, platoon guy that's mostly going to be, if everything works out, he's like mostly average, and he's sitting towards the bottom of the lineup when he does play. So, yeah, minimal interest.
I would prefer to see Perdomo play all the time versus Fletcher stealing at bats from him. So, I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah. Stuart Fairchild was recalled by Cincinnati. That's where we're at, Gray. 27 games in AAA, 3 home runs, 1 stolen base. He's hitting 240, 296. 65 games in at the major league level is actually better. He's hitting 4 home runs, 8 stolen bases, 237, 335, 404. NL only, maybe.
Yeah, NL only, maybe. Maybe. I'd kind of like to see other guys play in front of him, but I guess Will Benson could get platooned. I mean, Will Benson being platooned out, maybe not the worst thing for Will Benson. So, yeah, Fairchild might, platoon with Benson. Yeah, sounds okay. I think Fairchild, if anything, other from the names we've mentioned just previously, I like Fairchild for NL only more than Fletcher, just because of playing time and park, and he just has a little bit louder skills. Fairchild, that is. So yeah, I mean, still not great. I mean, Fletcher's like major, positive is like potentially his average, where Fairchild's not going to hit for a good average, but at least he's got some power and speed. So I mean, that's a little bit more interesting to me.
Yeah, and you can kind of fall into average if you hit the ball hard.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. All right. Moving on.
Brian Hayes goes to the IL with lower back inflammation. Jared Triolo was called up by the Pirates. 37 games in AAA. He has a home run, 8 stolen bases,
Triolo.
293.
Triolo's sounds like a place that makes really bad pizza. Hey, you want to order from Triolo's?
You go there for the breadsticks?
It's kind of, yeah. I mean, the breadsticks are good. The pizza's really bad. Now let's order. Come on, let's order from Triolo's. They make cinnamon sugar breadsticks. I mean, come on. You don't like that? I mean, that's real Italian shit. Okay, anyway, go ahead.
It's one of those places that, like, before Uber Eats, you would have to order from, but now you like order their breadsticks and get pizza from somewhere else. Yeah. Just have the delivery guy pick them up for you.
Exactly. And then the guy shows up with that. Wait, where's the icing? I need my icing for my cinnamon sugar breadsticks.
Go back and get it. I'm not tipping you till you go back and get it.
Damn, B-Don, you're tough.
Anyways, he's called up play third base. Primarily speed, maybe some average, but there's some K threat here as well. Like, where are you at on Triolo? Like, I'm trying to, like,
he's terrible too, man. Triolo. So
he actually has a little bit of prospect pedigree.
Yeah. Triolo is actually probably the best one of the last couple guys. The problem with Triolo is I think Hayes' injury doesn't sound that bad. So I feel like Triolo, like after the All-Star break, is probably going to get sent back down or maybe goes into like a bench role. I don't think Triolo's playing time is going to be there after like the All-Star break. So, I mean, that's not great. I think he is, I think you're right that his prospect pedigree is probably better than most of the guys we've talked about today. but it's still kind of yeah, he's fine for NL only. Maybe a short-term play in 15-team mixed leagues. I mean, the good thing is like his glove is really good. So I mean, I see kind of why they called him up rather than playing Rodolfo Castro at third. Like at first when Hayes went down, I was like, oh, Castro's going to get playing time. But that didn't happen because they called up Triolo. And then I did a little research on Triolo, and his glove is really good. So, I mean, I could see why they called him up and why he's playing. But I think his glove is actually his best attribute. So, for fantasy, that's not the best thing for us, obviously. So, yeah, I'm a little bit lukewarm, but maybe 15-team mixed league for a short-term play just to see what you can get while Hayes is on the IL.
Yeah, I think that's about what we're looking at. It could be one of those, again, that we're right at the All-Star break. Could be a kind of a phantom IL stint. They've already said they don't think it's serious. We'll have to see. Lower back is always a little tricky if it's a real injury and not just a let's get them through the All-Star break kind of thing. But monitor that. And again, Triolo is it's mostly speed, defense, and maybe hits for some average. The 27% K rate this year is a little bit out of line for what he's done, but he did also go from A ball to AAA, so that kind of is a big jump as well. We'll see how he makes the adjustment to majors.
He's also unlike a lot of the other guys we mentioned, or at least NL wise. I think he is currently the only guy really with everyday playing time. Like and they're playing him, which makes sense. Like I saw a few highlights of his with the glove. Like he is really good in the field. I think he won the Gold Glove for all third basemen in the minor leagues last year, I believe. So yeah, he's interesting as a real life player. He's interesting for fantasy. I mean, we'll see.
All right, moving on. The Braves pitching. We can just go ahead and start drinking right now, everybody. Mike Soroka had his start. He had 6 innings, 3 earned, 7 Ks, no walks. In AAA, he's actually had a 3-3. He's cleaned it up a little bit. 54 innings, 3-3-1, 1-1-4, 23.5% K rate, 8.4% walk rate. And then Kolby Allard was also called up. In AAA, he has only 2 starts this year, 6 2/3, 2 earned, 8 Ks, 2 walks. He had his start versus Minnesota, 4 2/3, 8 Ks though in that start with only 1 walk. And where are you at on Soroka, Allard? I mean, the Braves just continue to cycle in everybody and anybody in their minor league system to start games for them.
Yeah, I actually Kolby Allard, I grabbed him in a couple mixed leagues because I'm done betting against the Braves and their random ass pitchers. I'm not betting against the Braves anymore for random ass pitchers. The Braves you have to bet against the guys who you expect to be really good. Like Charlie Morton, goodbye. Bryce Elliott? Okay. We're in. I think Allard he's probably a streamer in most mixed leagues. I picked him up because he looked so good in his first start. I picked him up in a couple deeper mixed leagues, like 15-team mixed leagues. I picked him up in a couple just to see what he would look like in his next start or two. I think he gets the Guardians this week, so we'll see how he looks. I think it's too early to really say. Like, I think he's probably, best case scenario, he's probably like an 7.5 to 8 K per 9 with a 2.5 walk per 9. Like not like a number 5 to number 6 in best case scenario. And then he also needs to cut down on his homers allowed. So yeah, I'm lukewarm at best, but you never know with the Braves. Like, I didn't think Bryce Elliard was very good either. So Elder, I don't know why I keep calling him Elder. Bryce Elder. Anyway, Soroka, I think he's dog crap. I just don't see any Soroka. I don't know, man. I didn't even think he was good the 1 year when he pulled the the Julio Teheran year. I didn't think he was really that good in 2019 when he had a really good year. So I don't think there's much to him, to be honest. I think he's probably a streamer as well. I guess we'll see how he looks. And he's a streamer. He's also got, a lot of injury issues. So hopefully he's healthy, for his sake. But for fantasy, I'm not really interested in fantasy. At least not yet. I don't know. We'll see, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't think I'd ever say this, but I think Kolby Allard has more strikeout upside than somebody. And I think that's Mike Soroka. Like Mike Soroka is just he's not striking anybody out anymore. It's just not where he's at. And he never really was a high K rate guy, but like I kind of thought he could build on what he was doing. Now with all the injuries, I just don't expect it. I think his best attribute, if everything gets going back, is going to be, not walking people and good ERA, but that only goes so far without strikeouts in our game. Allard has kind of like he has been crap since the last time we saw him in a Braves, like within the Braves system. And even like his last 2 years with them was awful. And now he's back and it like the numbers all look a whole lot better. He's striking people out again. Maybe they just told him like, ditch all the extra pitches. We want you to throw the curveball a ton, throw the cutter more. Don't throw your fastball that often. We know it's not a great pitch. Use it when you need it. And maybe it's just that emphasis on the curveball. They just throwing that a ton. So I am more interested in Allard. I would actually add him in, I would say deep 12 team or 15 team leagues. I think Soroka is an NL only play because if you can get innings in the NL only, you pick him up.
He's got Soroka has he did at least. He had a 14% strikeout rate. Anyway, okay, moving on.
I mean, it's such a small sample size. Giving him a K percentage off of that, but yeah, it's not good.
No, that was 2 years ago. Even. I mean,
okay.
that was nothing. I was just looking at his stats. That was in only 21. How many innings was that? That was in 13 innings. It was a small sample for sure, but he's not a strikeout guy. Anyway, go ahead. We can move along.
Yeah, Victor Medeiros was called up by the Angels. It was maybe a little exciting, and then it seems like he's going to work out of the pen, so less exciting. But if he gets a chance in the rotation, it's one of those guys maybe you prospect and watch and see if he gets a start or two. 55 innings, he had a 5.98 ERA, 1.42 WHIP, 28% K rate, 10% walk rate, a big fastball, curveball, has a slider. I mean, are you interested in him at all, Gray? Do you think he's going to factor into any point in our game, other than maybe an occasional, like I said, spot start potentially?
No, I don't think so. I
Okay.
think he's a middle reliever. Maybe he gets a spot start, but even in a spot start, like his command is just so terrible. I wouldn't go near him.
Yeah, it seems like a middle reliever type. Maybe if he can get some control, he move up the totem pole of that bullpen. But for now, just wanted to mention he was called up basically. Domingo Herman had the perfect game. Just figured we should bring it up, Gray. I mean, how many doesn't happen every year? On the season, he has a 4.54 ERA, 105 WHIP, 81 innings pitched, 23.5% K rate, and a 7.5% walk rate. I mean, where does he kind of fall in among starting pitchers? Is he, let's say, in a 12-team standard league, medium bench? Like, is he a streamer? Is he somebody that's like he needs to be on somebody's roster, but maybe not your roster? Where is he fitting in?
He actually the last perfect game was in 2012 by Felix Hernandez. So 11 years ago. So yeah, it's been a while. Domingo Herman, yeah. I mean, I just, I was a fan of his, like about a month ago, and then he threw, like, I think he gave up 10 earned against the Mariners, so I dropped him the game before the perfect game, so that was good. That worked out well.
Sounds like Lance Lynn.
Yeah, Lance Lynn. Now, Lance Lynn, I didn't have the balls to drop Lance Lynn. He was on my bench for a 16 strikeout game. Yeah, that was awesome, man. That was really good. No, it was 8. I'm sorry. He gave up 8 earned and 10 runs total against the Mariners, the start before. And then the start before that, he gave up 7 earned. That was also a game where I had him in my lineup. So that was really good. So I had him in my lineup for 15 earned runs, then dropped him for the perfect game. And you're asking me my advice. Yeah, joke's on you, Jack. Yeah, I don't know, man. With Domingo Herman is really. I think I actually. I mean, I was joking with what he had done previously on my team, but that does illuminate the issue with Domingo Herman. I mean, are you really trusting him 100%? Even though he just threw a perfect game, you could get anything this next time out. Like, I don't know. I mean, I think he gets the Orioles next. So I think I could see potential trying him, because he does tend to get, like, he goes through these runs where he looks good for like a handful of starts. I don't know. I don't know what to. Honestly, I don't know what to expect from him. If you're just looking at his peripherals and nothing else, they don't look great. Like, he looks like a 4.5 ERA pitcher, and right now his ERA is 4.5. So he looks like, neutral. Like, his BABIP is super suppressed. But on the other hand, his left on base looks unlucky. So it looks like he could potentially look like he could be good. potentially for for a start or two in the right matchups, like we saw with him with Oakland, but his numbers don't jump off the page like he should be better than his 4.5 ERA. Like he looks kind of like that's what he looks like. He looks like a guy who will throw a start or two that's good, and then he could just blow up because he gives up way too many home runs. Like Oakland was the best case scenario, obviously, but it's sort of indicative of him being so good there because like the home run issue won't be an issue in Oakland, and it's going to be an issue in his home park against, halfway decent teams. So, yeah, he's risky still, even though he just had, the start of the decade on waivers for me.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess the problem is you can basically say that about almost every pitcher this year. Like almost every pitcher has been just lit up at some point in the year, and it doesn't really necessarily come in obvious matchups, or at least at the time. Like, did we think the Rangers were going to be one of the top two offenses or the Rays? Like, did we think that was necessarily this where we were at the beginning of the season when we were picking our matchups? Probably not, but that's the way it's kind of worked out. And everybody's had their bumps and bruises. I mean, Corbin Burns just gave up 7 earned like a couple weeks ago. I know that because I have him on one single team, and he's just like everybody gets hit hard. So I think he's probably in that like barrier where like depending on the depth of your league, if it's a shallow 12 team, he's getting dropped. Like in our RCLs, you drop him back out there, you pick him back up for the next good streaming start. If you're deeper than our RCLs, which is 12 team, 3-man bench, so if you're like a 7-man bench, I feel like he's probably owned and on somebody's team.
Corbin Burns right now is on the player radar. He's a little bit worse than Taijuan Walker, as everyone assumed coming into the year.
Yeah, that's been fun.
Yeah.
And it was an auction. I like he was at a number that I thought there's no way I'm getting him. I'm just gonna bid to get the number up. And somehow I got him. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'll have the number one pitcher somehow. And then here we are.
Yeah. Oh well.
We're moving over the bullpens, and then this is also kind of just a bit of a news thing. Aroldis Chapman got traded over to the Rangers. Kansas City called up Justin Martinez to replace him. Nothing really to do there. Aroldis wasn't even closing in Kansas City. Cole Reagans, Ronnie Cabrera, they were acquired in the exchange. Again, nothing really to do there in our game. Will Smith has actually been pretty good in the closer this year. Do you think that there's a swap? Do you think they maybe are in some kind of committee, or is this the Rangers just saying, you know what, we're hitting the ball pretty well. Let's have a decent bullpen.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great real world move by the Rangers to bolster their bullpen. I don't think Aroldis, other than maybe the occasional save when Will Smith has thrown, 2 days in a row or something, but otherwise, Bruce Bochy loves Will. He likes Will Smith. He likes him as a closer. Aroldis Chapman is also a lefty. There's no reason to switch out Will Smith with Aroldis Chapman. And I think on Sunday I think Aroldis Chapman came into the 7th inning. So yeah, I don't think Chapman is going to get many saves. Maybe a handful just when Will Smith is getting rested. So over under 5, maybe even, I'd probably go under actually on 5, unless Will Smith gets injured, which, then Aroldis Chapman probably would take over. But yeah, as of right now, Chapman's not the closer. Will Smith is the closer.
Yeah, because they basically only had like Brock Burke as the other closer, or the only other lefty in the pen, Cody Bradford, but he's been absolutely horrendous. So I think it was just more or less they needed another lefty. Why not grab one with closer experience? And Chapman can't cost as much as he used to these days. Not like what the Cubs paid out for him. Not salty about that at all. Hunter Harvey may have actually closed in on the closer role for the Nationals. Are you interested in Hunter Harvey if he has at least he's not in a committee anymore?
Yeah, and Finnegan stinks. So yeah,
everybody else kind of stinks there.
Yeah, everyone else is pretty bad, and Hunter Harvey's been relatively okay. I mean, he's been decent enough. I think I would roster Hunter Harvey. I wouldn't necessarily, drop anyone that good for him. If I had, if I were looking at like getting just saves, I'd probably look at like a Hunter Harvey. I'd grab Hunter Harvey in any league if I needed saves. But the Nationals aren't going to give him a ton of, chances. I would say over under for the rest of the year is probably 10. I'd probably go under on that too. I don't know, maybe like eight or 9 maybe saves for the rest of the year. It's fine. He's got 8 saves right now as we record this. I wouldn't be shocked if he is the closer the rest of the year and still ends up with less than 20 saves on the year. So, yeah.
Yeah. Alex Lang in Detroit has been struggling pretty much since the start of June. Since June started, he has a 9.53 ERA. That's not good, Trey. Jason Foley or Jose Cisnero would be next, I believe. Are you interested in speculating on either Foley or Cisnero?
No. I think for now at least, AJ Hinch seems like he's still putting Lang in the closer role. Like he's still using him as a closer. So I'm going with Lang still. I think he's probably still the closer. If he continues to struggle, Foley's been okay. I guess I could see potentially trying Foley, but I'm not speculating anywhere with the Tigers. Anywhere like beyond like Lang. Like Lang's it, man. That's it.
Yeah, I think if you're going, actually Foley and Cisnero have been pretty solid for most of the season. I mean, they're both low 2 ERA, both getting, not great strikeouts, but solid. So I think I don't mind speculating if you need to speculate on saves, if you're in, a deep enough league where everybody's owned and backups are owned. And I think you can go ahead and grab one of those. I don't know necessarily. I think Foley's been the one that's been getting kind of the setup work. So I think he's next in line. But either of them have been fine as far as their numbers overall. We'll see if Lane can hold on. He has just been. It's not been good. He's been hit up a number of times in the last month. So we'll see if he can kind of clean it up. Let's move over to the waiver wire, Greg. Give some people to pick up or watch out for, and then we'll get out of here.
Okay, so I think Aaron Hicks is banged up. I think he injured himself. So potentially Colton Cowser could be called up at any moment. I think, I just wrote him up in a buy-sell column like 2 weeks ago. So you can go back and find that. Christian Encarnacion Strand, does he exist still? Is he still around? What happened with that guy, man? Also, I'd like to see Grayson Rodriguez get called back. But with that said, he was really good in the minors prior to this year. So, and he looked awful in like the majors. So just because he's doing well in the minors doesn't mean he's a guarantee, if he gets called back looking great. Anyway, so some hot bats. Tommy Pham's been super hot. Spencer Torkelson looks like he might finally be figuring it out in the majors. Hyman Candelario has been hot. Luke Rowley, Carlos Santana, Jake Slawinski, Jose Abreu, as we mentioned earlier. Tony Kemp is, I appreciate anyone who's picking up Tony Kemp because that's a difficult pickup. Because I've tried to do it myself, but I haven't been able to pull the trigger because you look at Tony Kemp and you're like, A's. I don't know. That's not good. Let's see. Nick Gonzalez, actually a guy who's looked pretty good for the Pirates. He got called up. He's got some power. He's available in every league, according to the 7-day player rater. Zach Remillard, he's been hitting leadoff for the White Sox, and he's been hitting well in the last week. He's hitting close to 500. He doesn't really have much else to speak of. Like, I like him, though, as a leadoff guy for runs and average, potentially he's going to cool off at some point, obviously. And Eugenio Suarez has, he had a homer on Sunday. He's been a little bit hot. And J.P. Crawford on the Mariners. Okay. What do you got there, B-Dun?
I'll go ahead and give some pitchers. Ryan Nelson has kind of turned his season around, and he's going versus Pittsburgh. Josiah Gray versus Cincinnati. Braxton Garrett gets a 2-start versus St. Louis and versus Philadelphia. Luis Medina at Detroit. Martin Perez versus Houston and at Washington. Michael Lorenzen versus Oakland and Carlos Carrasco at Arizona. All a few names you can look at. And I just want to say I actually did pick up Tony Kemp. He's been leading off for the A's. I just couldn't. I was like, I need an outfielder to start this week. Yep, that's gonna be it, Gray. I'm gonna pick up Tony Kemp, but he's had 2 home runs, 4 stolen bases. He's hit .311 over the last couple weeks, and he's leading off most days. So there's worse things you could do, Gray. There are worse things you can do.
There is actually. You could pick up Josh Donaldson.
You could pick up all the people we talked about before.
That's a worse thing.
All right. If you have specific questions, send them to us. Go on the comments at Razzball. Go to youtube.com/RazzballFantasy. Leave them there. Find us on Twitter. I'm at RazBeaton. Gray is, of course, the at Razzball account. And until next week, we'll talk to you later.
All right. Thanks.
See ya.